Hey, I'm April.
I'm Bayleigh, and this is the Nestled Podcast.
Here we chat about how to help design meet purpose. Our hope is that you will find inspiration to live more intentionally.
So join us each week as we let you peek in our nest.
And as always, the door will be open. Hey guys, welcome back.
Season 2!
Yay! We need one of those sound effects that's like the clapping.
There we go. Just as good.
Yeah.
For those of you who are new around here, or maybe since we've been gone so long, I've just forgotten, I'm Bayleigh. This is what I sound like.
And I'm April. So we hope that you guys are learning to distinguish our voices after an entire season that abruptly ended.
And our apologies. Look, we just listened back a little bit, and April said, well, on the last episode, we said in a few weeks we'll be back with a minimalist and a maximalist. So, sorry guys, that was the intention.
Here we are 3 months later, without a minimalist or maximalist, but with ourselves.
That's right. We promise to never leave you without warning again.
We are going to do better.
We will do our best.
Actually, last season, we had all intentions of coming back, and after that episode aired, and we were really struggling towards the end of the season.
We were.
We literally said, we're going to take 1 week off, and then our kids came home from school, and guys,
It just didn't happen.
It could not have happened.
But it would not be fair to ourselves if we did not take our own advice, which is when you're overwhelmed and you have too much going on, you've got to step back and simplify things and pull out the things that you can. And in that moment, that was something that we could pull out, and we had to in order to not drown. So I'm happy to report we're here and we're healthy.
We are.
And we are so excited to be back.
We are actually more excited about season 2 than we even possibly thought we could be.
Yeah, I think we're more excited than we ever were about season 1. And we were really pretty excited about season 1.
We were.
So that's saying a lot.
We didn't have a lot of time to become excited because we kind of jumped right in.
Right.
But we have been preparing for you guys for several weeks, and so that hopefully we'll never leave you hanging out again.
That's right.
We have been interviewing guests for upcoming episodes, and we think it's going to be a fabulous season. And we're just glad that you're back and that you guys have stuck with us through all of our crazy.
Yes. And to everyone who sent us encouragement in the form of email or Facebook comments or Instagram messages or comments, thank you so much. We were so encouraged during our time away to want to come back.
Yes. And we felt so loved by you guys and that you really do love what we're doing. And so we can't wait to bring you what is hopefully even a better product this season.
Right. So to kick off this brand new, spanking new season,
season 2,
we have a giveaway for you guys.
Yes, we are so excited to offer a copy of Rosaria Butterfield's new book called The Gospel Comes with a House Key, and it's one that we love. We feel like if we were as smart as she is, we would have written that book.
Right.
And
but we're not.
And so we hope to one day have her on the show. In the meantime, we're going to give away her book. So Bayleigh's going to tell you how you can enter into that giveaway.
So to get this book, and if you don't win, I want to encourage all of you to just go out and buy it anyway because it's that good.
Yes,
it is worth every penny. But to win our book, all you have to do is go to our podcast app, leave us a review, then come on to our Instagram page, make sure you like us, and send us a message with a screenshot of that review.
Yeah, and that will enter you into the giveaway. And if you've never listened to the podcast, at least maybe listen to one episode before you leave a review.
Right. Yes, please do. Please don't come on and say, oh, I can't stand these girls, but I would love the book, and you've never actually even listened to it.
You only get entered if you leave a 5-star review.
Yeah.
That is the other thing that has to happen.
It has to be a positive review.
A positive review will enter you into the giveaway.
So for an example, which by the way, y'all make us feel so loved whenever you leave these reviews.
Yes.
We get really excited.
The little smiley face with the red cheeks and the happy hands emoji, that's us every time we get a review.
Every single time. So just a quick example of a really sweet review. It says, as a believer and mom/wife with a passion for hospitality and decor, this podcast feeds my soul. I love the way April and Bayleigh approach these conversations with purpose, love, and a heart to encourage. Thank you for basically creating the perfect podcast for me. I feel like y'all are my friends now. Not weird, right? Not weird at
Not
all.
at all. We really are. You guys are our friends. Like, if we could have you guys, every one of you, gals, guys is a weird thing that I always say. It's like part of my vocabulary, and we're not really talking to many guys. Anyway,
our
if
husbands.
all of you ladies could come into our homes and we could have these conversations with you and we could do this together with you of loving our neighbors, we would do that. But since we can't, this is the avenue in which we've been given to encourage you to love your home and to love your family well, and also to love the people around you.
Nothing would make us happier than to know that some of you are like riding in your car listening to this, and that whenever you hop into your driveway and you get out, you see a neighbor outside, so that you like went over and said hello to that neighbor when you normally wouldn't have.
Right.
That's what our hope is for you guys.
Yes, and this podcast, for those of you who are new around here, I'm April again. Just one of the things that we want to continue to try to encourage ourselves to do is to remind you of who's talking to you, because some people have said it was hard to tell in the beginning. Yeah. So if you're new, we're so glad you're here. And our heart for this place was originally, we set out to have a design podcast, but with purpose. And along the way, it has taken on a little bit of a different shape and form than we originally planned, but I think that it is going to be so much better because whenever we are able to step back and say, okay, we as believers have everything open-handed, and if God gives us something, like, let Him direct it and shape it. And so it came about in a season where we couldn't do our other job because Bayleigh had a baby. And so in that time, we also, she birthed a baby, we birthed a podcast.
That's right. On maternity leave. And really, from the moment that we had the idea maybe we could do this to the first episode was under 2 weeks. Yes. So we jumped right in. And it has been a year-long process of figuring out, okay, who do we want this podcast to become? What do we want it to be? What do we want it to be about? And we've wrestled with it a lot because if you listened all last season, you heard us say a number of times, well, I guess you didn't. This was behind the scenes. Yeah. We kept saying, we're not doing enough design. We're not doing enough design. But the guests that God was putting in front of us and the people who are agreeing to come home all seem to have this heart for hospitality.
Yes.
And so at times we worried that we were going in the wrong direction because it wasn't what we originally set out to do. But over time, we've just kind of embraced that that is what this podcast is supposed to be.
Yes.
Now with that, we are still designers.
Right.
We still love design. You're still going to hear about that. And we're still going to talk about design with purpose.
Right. And we are also mothers, and we didn't want to start a mom podcast because there are a lot of people who are doing that and doing it really well, and we didn't feel called to do that. April, have 5 kids. Bayleigh has 3 kids. We're married. We do ministry together. We do life together. But ultimately, what we want to hone in on is like Bayleigh is saying, like the design with purpose, but just loving your home, loving your neighbors, and ultimately loving and serving God.
And for those of you who don't know, I'm sorry for those of you who do know this, that you're getting a lot of repeats, but I promise we won't continue to do this all season. This is just for the premiere.
Yes.
For those of you who are new. But for those of you who don't know, a little over a year ago, we both moved our families way across town, like 40 minutes across town, to a different area where we would be living right in the same little neighborhood, currently on the same street, but April's about to move a few streets over. But so we could intentionally love our neighbors.
Yes.
And we have not regretted that for 1 second.
We haven't. And there's no thought that everyone is called to move to a certain part of town. But we were finding that we were pulling into our driveways just like everyone else on our street, and we were pulling into the back or into our garage or whatever it was, and we weren't really knowing the people around us. And also, we looked around and we really, maybe this is a little too far into our hearts, but like we really looked around and saw a lot of people that looked and lived and acted like we did. And we just said, how are we going to be a real picture of the kingdom of God, which is very diverse, if we're not living in a diverse area?
Right.
And so that was what we felt called to. And there was also, Bayleigh had a little extra push in that because she has a daughter who doesn't look exactly like her.
Right. Well, we knew Maisie, our daughter. It was not healthy for her only to be surrounded by white people when she's not white. And that right now, she doesn't realize that as much. But as she gets older, we need mentors in her life who have color to their skin.
Yeah.
We do.
All different colors.
All different colors. And so we are thrilled that we were able to move to an area where she's able to see more of that. We've got them in a very diverse school where she's surrounded by friends. April's kids are also there. But our kids are getting to experience diversity in a way that I wish that I would have been able to embrace a lot earlier in life.
And we don't just mean racial diversity.
No.
There is religious diversity. There are socioeconomic diversity. All of those areas that we want to, as part of our raising our children and making our home a place of learning, is partly learning how to deal with people who are different than you, and not just deal as like in a bad way, but like love people. How do we really love people who don't look and act and think just like us?
How to embrace the differences, even physical differences and different abilities and things like that. We never want our kids to be frightened by disability.
Right. And so here we are in our neighborhood. And then as the year kind of progressed and the podcast was kind of taking a little bit more of a hospitality and home turn than a design turn, and we were just allowing that to happen however it did, we also, in loving trying to get to know our neighbors, were kind of collided with a situation that really made us rethink what the direction of our business and our podcast was going to be moving forward.
So we had some neighbors. Are we going to say their names?
We can.
I don't know.
We can rename them.
Yeah, we should probably
call them something else.
We'll probably mess it up, but
let's call them Jane and John.
Jane and John. Okay. So we actually probably talked about Jane and John at some point last season.
For sure.
We just
we never said their name.
Okay, so we started trying to pursue them in the early days of moving onto the street. That was just a couple that I think stood out to both of our families. The wife, Jane, had a little doggie who she loved very, very much, and she really only left the house to walk the dog.
Right.
And so if we were going to talk to them, if we were going to talk to her, it was going to be while she was walking the dog.
Yes.
And we did that.
And we did. And her dog loved our kids.
Her dog loved our kids very much.
And so that was a connecting point. And we, in the best way that we knew at the time, tried to build a relationship with Jane and with John, but it was difficult.
It was difficult. There are some seriously thick walls there that we tried to break through. We could have tried harder in retrospect, but the walls were there. So a few months into living here, Jane, actually, my husband was walking with the girls. I was not with them. She came out and found him and let him know that her dog had passed away. And this was devastating for her.
Yes.
And we didn't see her leave the house.
We didn't see either of them leave the house for a while.
Yeah. Yes. It was a really big deal in their lives. And I'll be transparent here and say we had the girls make cards for her. We never brought the cards. So some advice I would give in retrospect is if you feel the nudge to do something for somebody, follow through.
Right.
I started feeling, I'm like, she doesn't even like us or our kids. So we didn't bring the cards.
Yeah.
And I wish that we had, even if we had just dropped it in her mailbox.
Yeah. And around that same time, I had stopped by because she was on the porch just to check on her, and she spilled the whole story about losing the dog, and she was so upset about it. And the husband had kind of gone into a state of depression because of losing the dog, but also losing his job around that same time. And they're an older couple. And so that kind of gave us a little bit more of like a nudge of like, man, we've really got to love these people. Well, then late at night, I see an ambulance at their house. They're across the street from us. And so we walk outside and we called Justin and he came down too. And we're like waiting to kind of see, well, we see the ambulance leave. And we knew that it was the husband that was on the ambulance, but the wife never left. And so we're standing there and we're kind of at this crossroads of what do we do? Because surely she's going to follow, and she didn't. So I went and knocked on the door and I said, what's going on? Long story short, she was too beside herself to be able to get to the hospital. So Lance and I took her to the hospital, and I drove her, and then Lance picked me up and we left her there, and then we came home. So then we didn't really check back in a whole lot. My kids were going over there to kind of help and do some things. And we still are at this point of like, we don't really know them that well. We're just going to keep working on building this relationship.
It can feel very awkward when even if you do know someone is going through something, if you don't have a relationship, you start going, I don't want to bother them while they're going through this thing.
Right.
And so I think that's kind of where we stood of, if we see them and we can see the need, we will meet it, right. But we weren't like knocking on the door saying, what can I help you with?
Right. Or just without asking, bringing a meal.
Right.
Or having,
right.
intentional conversations and those kind of things.
Right. So then probably
a month
later, maybe a little under a month, there's another ambulance.
Mm-hmm.
And so April was on her way out, and she saw the ambulance. So she called me, and we go down there, and we were watching. And they were in there a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And they were moving in a way that I started to realize, I said, I don't know which one it is, but this is not good for whoever is down.
Yes.
And eventually, the paramedic came across the street to us and said, do you know her? And we said, I mean, kind of,
mm-hmm.
Yes. And he said, she's going to need somebody.
Yes. And she said a neighbor would take her to the hospital.
Now, to this day, we don't know who that neighbor was.
Right.
But she assumed a neighbor will take me to the hospital, and they then took the husband away. And so April, I look at her and I'm like, please don't leave me.
This was one of those moments of panic in our eyes.
Yes, please do not leave me.
Yes.
And so she did not go to the PTO meeting. But we were able to link arms and walk in that house and face what we knew was going to be really hard to face. Yeah. And
long story short, the husband passed away, and we were with the wife, who has no family here, has no relationships in our city, is not from here, and we were with her in, I absolutely believe, the worst moment of her life.
Of her entire life, yeah.
At the hospital. And looking back, there's a part of me that is very humbled that we were with her in that moment, and there's a part of me that is so sad that we were with her in that moment.
It was really, really hard.
It was.
We felt very much like this is not our place. Not in we shouldn't have to do this, but we have not done anything to earn
this place
here in this
her.
moment. Yeah. But we're who she had.
And that continued on for the next several days. And eventually, this neighbor moved back to where she is from.
Many states away.
To be with family, and it really caused us to stop and really reconsider a lot of things in our life. Because here we are, moving across town to be good neighbors, to love the people around us, and we think we're doing that.
Right, we're doing
the best that we can most days. But then we realized in the conversations that followed, these people did not know Jesus.
And we did not do our part to help him know Jesus before he died. And do you want to know something that is one of the most heartbreaking things you'll ever see? Is a wife who's burying her husband who's saying, I hope maybe he's in heaven. I don't know. She didn't even really know what he believed.
No.
And we could not look at her and say, of course he's in heaven.
Right.
And this was a pretty good man. Yeah. He was not a bad man. He was not a mean man.
Right.
But he didn't know the Lord.
Yeah.
And he had not accepted Jesus as his Savior. And that is what you have to do to go to heaven.
Yeah.
And so it was heartbreaking.
It was heartbreaking in so many ways. And guys, first of all, like, I want to say that we are fully aware that we have no control over anyone's salvation.
Right.
That you and I loving our neighbor is not their only hope for eternity. Jesus is their hope for eternity. But who is the picture of Jesus in the world today? His people. And we are his image bearers. And so as that became very close to the forefront of our minds, and as that was on our hearts so heavily, it's made us really reconsider every aspect of our life, and including our business.
Right.
And this podcast.
Yeah. And also, just to clarify, in case any of you are thinking this, we are not trying to sensationalize this story.
No.
And there are a lot of really personal details that we could give you if we wanted to get a rise out of you.
Yes.
That we're not going to give because they're not ours.
That's not the point.
That is not the point. I just want to be clear with you.
But we really questioned whether to even share this story with you guys.
Right.
But it really played into the direction that is changing with the podcast. And so we wanted to share that because we feel like it's applicable to the future of the Nestled podcast.
And for all of you who have supported us and listened to us for so long, it would not be fair if we did not explain to you where we were coming from and why we are no longer just calling this a design podcast.
Right.
So,
because we can't just talk design.
Right.
And feel like we are living out the purpose and making the most of the opportunities that we've been given, because this is such a cool opportunity that we've been given. And we don't want to do it without intentionality. Just like every week we are preaching about being so intentional in the way that you decorate your home and being intentional in the way that you love your neighbors. Like, we have to be able to do the same thing and live what we believe and what we say that we believe.
Right. So in that, our business, for those of you who follow along with our business, it is going to turn some where we are not going to be doing as many design jobs.
Yes.
We will take some, but definitely that will not be the full-time aspect of what we're doing.
Yeah.
This is now going to take our focus. And we're also excited to say that we are going to start speaking.
Yeah.
And so, if you have a church who needs someone to come speak to their ladies, you have a ladies weekend coming up and you haven't booked a speaker, we would love for you to contact us.
Yeah, we have some topics that we are going to be sharing through different avenues that we've been given. So we're going to talk about biblical hospitality and loving your neighbor. We're going to talk about being nestled in the neighborhood. We feel like that's kind of been our call and has kind of given us this little bit of background, and to talk about the failures and successes of pursuing our community.
We're going to be speaking on loving the vulnerable, answering the call to care for the orphan, me as an adoptive mom, April, whose family has not adopted yet, but are very much involved with the orphan care community and around us, and we want to encourage you all of all the ways that you can engage there. Also, we're going to talk about haven making and just creating a home culture that's, like we say in our intro, both a launching pad, but also a soft place to land. And that's where the design meeting purpose will really come into play.
Yes. And finally, we're going to talk about living simply. And as two people who have maximalist tendencies, but have chosen and found so much freedom in living more minimal, we are going to encourage others to do the same.
Yeah. So if you have groups who would be interested in hearing from us on any of those topics, please shoot us an email. At passionatesdesigns@gmail.com.
Yeah.
And we would love to see if we can mesh our calendars together and make that happen.
Absolutely. And so we just want to make you guys aware of what we as a business are going to be doing, because I think that it is something that is going to affect you guys, because we are going to be more clear in our focus on hospitality through the podcast. We're going to talk a lot more practical design as opposed to more trending.
Right.
Because there is always this wrestling within us with encouraging people to spend a lot of money on things that, guys, we are very aware in the grand scheme of things don't matter.
Right.
What your furniture looks like does not affect the kingdom of God.
Right.
But we also know that if you have a place that you love, you're confident in, that you are more likely to open your home, you're more likely to invite others in. And so we are going to continue to encourage you to do that. But whether that means that you have money to spend or whether it just means like the way that you set up your furniture, like we are going to talk a lot more practical than we are the rules of design.
Right. And I think also if you follow along on social media, you're going to start seeing a lot more how-to posts, which is something that we really have desired to do from the get-go, but have not been able to find time because we were so busy with all of our clients' design projects.
Yeah.
And so now we're going to be able to do things like simple things like showing you how we would switch out a mantle or different ways to arrange your furniture.
Right.
To make the space feel opened up, or ways to make a space feel less cold.
Yeah. And honestly, a lot of these things are things that you guys have been asking for that we just haven't been able to do because our focus being on the design side of our business. And so we're trying to make it way more about you guys as our listeners of the podcast, but also those of you who interact with us on Instagram. That's where we mainly are. And just being a lot more personal because you guys have said, and we see the numbers, the posts that everyone likes are the ones that are our homes, that are us giving a little bit more of how-to and tips and things like that, rather than design posts of beautiful spaces. And we have not been super consistent even with that because of the time that our business has taken.
Right.
In the other areas.
So with that, this change of direction, we are going to be rebranding.
We are.
We are still going to be the Nestled Podcast, but Nestled is going to become more of our brand than Posh Nest Designs. And so with that, we need a new website and we need a new logo. And so if you are someone who is talented in that area, we are really hopeful that we'll be able to use a listener. We really want to hire one of you guys. Since you've supported us, we want to be able to support you. So if that's you, please shoot us an email or a message on Instagram, however you want to reach out to us, with just your pricing and some examples of your work, because we are really hoping to connect with one of you on that. We're hiring somebody regardless. We want it to be one of our friends.
Yes, one of our friends, and you are our friends, and that's not weird.
Yeah, it's not weird. Yes.
And moving forward, we are going to continue to talk about contentment and the things that we're thankful for in our home. So those are some things that will be familiar from last season that we're going to continue to do in this season. We're still going to do Love It or Leave It, and we're going to do that today.
Yes.
Bailey's husband gave us a little advice after binge listening to some episodes he missed.
Yes. So he binge listened to probably the whole second half of the season this summer. And his takeaway was, okay, it's fine to do Love It or Leave It every week, but for those of us who listen every week, we don't need to hear you explain to the guests how Love It or Leave It works.
Yes.
And I thought, okay. So, Justin, you'll be happy to know that as we have interviewed each guest thus far this season, we are explaining it to them before we hit record.
That is true. But for those of you who are new here, and if you've stuck around this long, thank you.
Yes, thank you. I'm so glad you're here.
But we're going to do an episode of Love It or Leave It for you guys as an example, and we're going to say love it, leave it to one another, and I think we'll both answer.
Yeah.
So just so you'll have an example of how this works, and then moving forward, there will be no explanation given.
Yes.
And everyone will know what to expect. I think we need a sound effect, though. Everyone will know that it's coming in. That's part of our Getting Better Season 2.
Yes.
Sound effects.
Sound effects.
So we need the clap, and we need
a little music, a little jingle. We'll figure it out.
All right, so we're going to start with farmhouse. Love it or leave it?
I love it on a farm. No, they're in my heart. I love it, but the part of me that fights trends has made me leave it the past many years. What about you?
Yeah, I think there are aspects of it that I love, and I think that my style would lean more towards that if it weren't so trendy, and if Joanna Gaines hadn't happened and made everybody love it,
which
I love
Joanna Gaines.
And she's fabulous, and I mean, don't get us wrong.
Yeah.
We love Joanna.
Right.
But I could leave it now, and then I feel myself, even something that I really like, thinking I don't like it because it's farmhouse, and then I'm like, what? That's so stupid.
Right. I do love modern farmhouse.
Yeah.
Like that thing she started doing towards the end of her fixer.
That had a little mid-century.
Yes.
So let's go ahead and talk about that. Love it or leave it, modern style.
Love it. I
Yeah.
love it. I'm worried that it's, well, I mean, I know it sounds odd to say I'm worried modern's going to become too trendy too. But like mid-century modern especially, I've always loved it. I live in a mid-century house, so it makes sense here. But like, I do worry that that's going to be the next
trend.
farmhouse. Yeah, so, yeah, but I do love it.
Yeah, there are, and I feel the same about that. Like, I think that because it's becoming more popular, I would say I love it in moderation.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to ask this one to you because I think I know your answer. Chocolate.
Love it. Love it. Can't survive without it.
Yeah.
Eat it in the middle of the night sometimes. A scoopful of Nutella. It's true.
And that's Bayleigh.
That's me, Bayleigh. Yeah, love it.
We had this conversation the other night over dinner with a couple that's just started coming to our church. And, actually, she listens. She just came back to our church, Meg.
Hi, Meg.
But,
We're so glad you're here.
But I said leave it because it was chocolate or cheese. And I was like, cheese all day. So I could really leave chocolate and it wouldn't kill me. If I could still have cheesecake, I would be so happy.
I don't know. I'll take chocolate over cheesecake. Now give me one of Carmen Davison's cheesecakes.
And then
I would
it
leave
would
every other
definitely
dessert
battle.
for that.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
okay. Marble everything.
I am going to say leave it. I think marble is beautiful. I do not think it's practical.
Mhm.
And as someone who is trying to design a house right now for my own family, everything I can think is it doesn't matter if I think that's beautiful. It is not practical for my family.
Mhm.
And I do have a marble coffee table. I think that it's pretty, but the marble countertops that stain so easily, get scratches, the marble, I cannot be held responsible for something so precious
Right.
that can be ruined so easily.
Right. My sister does marble everything, and I love it there.
Yeah.
It looks great. Her house is so beautiful.
Mhm.
Her house looks nothing like my house. So, but I love it. I do also love it for other people.
Yeah. Okay. Dark walls. Love it or leave it?
Love it in moderation. I love it in one room.
Yeah.
With pops of bright color.
Yeah.
Even if it's white.
I
That's
came up
fine.
with this list, and the reason I asked that is because, and we're going to ask you guys this too, because we want your opinions, but I am really torn over paint colors in some rooms right now at my house, and I really want to paint my master bedroom dark, like either navy or charcoal, and I've gotten Lance on board,
Then do it.
and I want to, but then I'm like, how long am I going to like that?
Well, but here's the thing. But we always tell people, it's paint.
I know.
You can paint it. Again, you can go back over with gray.
I don't want to go back over it with gray.
You can go back over with gray if you change your mind about
Gray or gray.
it. Gray.
Gray.
That's for all you Instagram followers who saw, is it with an A or an E?
We
Okay.
learned our lesson there.
We
Okay.
did. Soft drinks.
I am going to say leave it.
I'm going to say leave it.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are times where I feel like I just need a Coke.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I need a Coke, but I'm never happy with the result.
With the,
I always feel terrible. And I always say, like, if I had not, and this is no offense to you, my mother, because you did not want us to drink sodas, so this is not enough on you. But if I had never tried a soda as a kid, there's no way I would put that in my body now.
Right.
If I did not know I liked Coca-Cola, if I saw that nasty-looking brown sludge of a drink, I would not drink that.
Yeah.
You drink and it burns your throat. You know, like,
Right.
I would not drink that. But, man, it burns so good.
Sometimes the burn is so good.
Yeah, but leave it. I could do without it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It hurts my stomach.
Mhm.
It does help a headache,
Mm-hmm.
which is
Yeah,
originally what it was made for.
Really?
It started out in, like, pharmacies as a headache medicine.
And everybody just got addicted to it.
Yes. Well, I think it actually had drugs in it at the time, though, like
Okay.
cocaine or something. I think I'm just kidding. I don't know what it was, but someone really
That's
smart
really
is going to
named
send
Coke.
us a message and be like, wrong. You got the whole story wrong. We went to World of Coke this summer, and I didn't read any of the papers, so.
Oh, goodness. We skipped that when we went to Atlanta. Oh, so funny. But, yeah, leave it, ultimately. All right.
Okay.
So with that, you guys, that's the end of episode 1.
We hope you're going to stick around for season 2.
Yes. So the next week's, what have we done? Like 4 interviews so far, with a few more coming up, and we are so excited. I know we keep saying that, but we are just so humbled by the people who are willing to come and talk to us.
And we're also so humbled that you guys listen and that you are on this journey with us. It really has been so fun.
Yes, and shout out to all of you that listened to us all summer and kept our numbers looking good despite there being no new content.
I know.
We could not love you more.
We're hoping that all of you new listeners from this summer that got our numbers up even when we weren't putting anything out,
that you're sticking
are
around.
going to stay around for season 2.
We'll know a few hours after this post, so we'll see.
Yes, and we're so excited about the new direction of the podcast this summer. We hope that you guys are going to be encouraged by our content, both on Instagram. Follow us there at Nestled Podcast, as well as on the podcast. And we're going to be sharing a lot more of our own heart and our own homes and our own stories with you, because we feel like that is what we've been given to really make a difference. And
it's what we've wanted to do, so we're going to do it now. So here it comes. So
thanks for taking a peek in our nest.
We hope you come back next week. As always, the door will be open.